right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Mississippi Wrestling Network. I'm once again joined by my dear friend Joe Deere. How you doing today, Joe?
Man, you already know, man. I'm happy to be here to talk about my favorite sport, my favorite person.
That's right. Now we're gonna get into a recap of the boys' individual state tournament, but before we do, check out the swag. What you think, Joe?
Man, shout out to Dave Sutherland. He's the best. I mean, he was such a hospitable host. I mean, we reached out to some coaches, and he was the one to reach back and open up his practice facility to kind of meet his team and do some interviews. And at the end of it, he's like, "Hey, you want some Van Cleve swag?" And by all means, hey, I love it. I'm glad we can rep it and kind of show some solidarity between the North and the South, and let us know that hey, we're fans of everybody. We love Mississippi wrestling.
That's right, and I guess I'm gonna start me a collection now. It's my first Van Cleve wrestling shirt. I've got some South Pontotoc gear. Been trying to get my hands on some New Albany wrestling gear all year. Kindle. I'm just kidding. But no, I mean, I think it's awesome. Like I said, I'm a fan of the sport. I'm a fan of a lot of these wrestlers, and man, I'd love to be able to get on the podcast and represent some different teams and stuff like that.
Absolutely. I mean, especially for the viewing audience. I mean, I'm sure you'd love to see, like a St. Pat's or a Center Hill or all your teams being represented when you view this stuff. And, I just want to harp on that point again. This is the Mississippi Wrestling Network. This isn't the North Mississippi Wrestling Network. This isn't the Pontotoc County Mississippi Wrestling Network. Mississippi. We're all about Mississippi wrestling here. So shout out to Dave Sutherland. We really appreciate you. You've been very kind to us, and we wanted to show you some love at the front end of this episode.
Absolutely, and also, I want to give a huge shout out and a thank you to our sponsors from this weekend: Magnolia Soap and Bath Company and Big Country Inc. Both of them, they jumped in and wanted to support us and support the cause. Get us down there, and it was a huge help, their contributions, and we want to thank them. And so, once again, ladies and gentlemen, support the supporters. Go show them some love. Magnolia Soap and Bath and Big Country Inc.
Because I tell you what, they made our lives a lot easier. I didn't have to reach into my pockets as much this weekend. Thanks to their love and support.
Yeah, absolutely. It kind of eased that up on us a little bit. We put in a lot, this season, and so it was just really nice to see some support, come in right there heading into the state tournament. And like I said, we appreciate everybody, especially the people who just the viewers. We really appreciate every one of you, for tuning in throughout the year. Rapid growth, on our page, and with that. We want to kind of figure out the best way to bring you this throughout the season. We started out on YouTube, bringing our lives through YouTube, and then once we became eligible to go live on Facebook, we started bringing the lives on Facebook. And now I will say, we get a lot more views on Facebook than we did on YouTube.
A little bit.
But I have had several parents or other kids that I know a lot of the kids, they don't have a Facebook, and so we've had some of them create Facebooks just for this. And as a parent, I understand why the kids don't have Facebook, and so that makes a lot of sense. And we just want to bring you the best product that we can, and if it's more user friendly, for you to watch it on YouTube. I know on YouTube you can cast it to your TV and stuff like that, and so we want to bring you the best experience possible. So let us know in the comments. And also, if you do choose YouTube, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button and that notification bell. Build that support up on YouTube just as much as we're getting on Facebook, and that would help us out a lot. Just seeing kind of the fruits of our labor and, all the engagement that we get, it really makes me happy, seeing in the comments, where there's a grandmother from Missouri that's watching her kid wrestle and stuff like that. I'm really happy that we get to bring those memories to them and to family members and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, there's family members across the country. I know one in the comments said they're repping from Alaska. Yeah. And so they ain't going to make that plane trip and that drive to the state tournament, and they want to watch their babies wrestle. And so, I love what we're doing because, sometimes not everyone can make it, especially even with the state tournament being in Ocean Springs, St. Martin area. That is a 5.5 hour drive for some of our fan base. And so I'm glad that they're able to catch it thanks to this service.
Absolutely. And with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get right into it.
right. Yeah, 106, man. This was, dare I say, awesome.
It was.
Um, because one thing I love about this sport, or in the context of the state of Mississippi, is finally seeing high level wrestlers match up against one another. As is expected with the new and developing sport, there's a considerable talent gap with a lot of athletes. But you know what we're starting to seeing, as we've kind of alluded to throughout our conversations over the season, is we're starting to see higher and higher level wrestling. We're starting to see higher level wrestlers in state match up with one another to really test their abilities to the fullest extent. And we saw it beginning at 106 and many other weight classes that we're going to discuss. Um, but before we get to these final matches, I mean, there were some notable performances that I really enjoyed. You know, two immediately out of my head is Mouskowitz of Ocean Springs and Lindsay of Van Cleve. Both wrestlers had always been impressing me. I remember watching them at Dual State for the first time, and they clearly showed they had some skills. And I'm sure the two wrestlers are very familiar with each other. I imagine they met up at South State. I mean, I know they met in the third and fourth place match with Mouskowitz coming out on top. But I wanted to start off with by complimenting those two athletes because they show that they're in that conversation. I know both of them bumped up against the inevitable finalists, but still that showing was really impressive. And then, of course, I got a shout out for my boy Jensen Hitt.
Titan Allen's favorite wrestler.
I mean, he's one of my favorites too, man, just because, you know, he is so technically sound and he fights, and that's a recurring theme of a lot of the compliments that I have for these wrestlers is that, he knows he's at a disadvantage, but he's still taking it to you. He's a definition of a David and Goliath. And by all means,
Ended up on the podium.
He made it on the podium, and I just remember in the finals match, or at one point in time, I was alone on our table, and I look back, and there's Jensen Hitt with his little medal around his neck, and his feet can't even touch the ground in the chair, and he's just kicking him back and forth. And I'm like, Jensen, what's up, buddy? You did really good. And he just looks up at me with these big old eyes, and he's like, yeah, but I want to do better. And buddy, you will. I promise you, man. Yeah, I'll say it again. You're 20 pounds away from a state title.
Absolutely. And then, a couple other notable performances. So Daniel Peters, New Albany, he went out there, he wrestled hard, first year wrestler, first year program, represented New Albany well.
He did.
And Kai Clowers, man, he didn't get the finish that I'm sure he wanted, but man, I'll tell you, the improvements that I've seen him make all year long, from last year, seeing him, we talked about it before, it wasn't like he was showing up, for a good time or a bad time, just kind of killing time, but then like this year, he really turned it around, man. And, you could tell that he was going out there wanting to win. He's kind of coming into his own as a wrestler, and, he performed really well.
And circling back to Daniel Peters, I mean, the exact same thing that you just said about Clowers can be said about Peters. I mean, especially I've had a front row seat to it. I mean, he trains here, and he's improved tremendously. Unfortunately, he just ran into two buzzsaws first round and then on the backside, which, it is what it is. It happens. I know he'll be back training in the summer, and he'll get a lot better. I mean, all these kids in that 106, I mean, they're young. They have a huge time horizons. Daniel's in 7th grade. He has time to keep climbing that ladder, and I believe he will. Which brings me to the next person, the kid he lost to in the Constellation quarterfinals is Lopez of St. Patrick's. I mean, he kind of hit the scene for me at that state tournament. I know I've seen the name, but we don't get to see too many Southern teams too often. If you weren't at Dual State, we really didn't see you. I've just heard of you, and I got to see you wrestle, and I was pretty impressed with his performance. He wrestled and bumped into Mouskowitz and bumped him down to that 5th and 6th place. And hey, he ended on a high note, getting that 5th place finish.
Yeah, and Moskowitz was one of them Southern wrestlers that he impressed me as well. Same thing. There's only been like 2 of the South teams that we've been able to get a look at, prior to the state duels. And, that's just, hey, their coaches, went above and beyond with the scheduling, to get them up here and get some competition against the North. But Moskowitz was another one. I was really impressed. He ended up, having to bump up against Brewer, who, ended up winning it all. But, he looked really good out there.
And then before we get to the Brewer and Stewart, I mean, Micah Parker of Oxford, you turned it up, buddy. I mean, you were always a solid wrestler throughout the season, and I've always been considering you one of the higher level guys of that 106, but I feel like you really flipped the switch and turned the dial up this weekend. I know we didn't get probably the finish that we wanted to. I know you finished 6th place, but regardless, it was a battle every single match. and you hung in there, and I was pretty impressed with how you wrestled. So I want to give you compliments, and of course, Thomas of East Central. Again, unfortunately, we don't get to see Southern teams too often, but I really enjoyed watching you wrestle. I mean, the same comments we give the other athletes, I think equally apply to you, man. And I hope all you guys we've just talked about, you're going to keep climbing as long as you put in the work in the off season. But of course, that's going to bring us to the two big names of this weight class, Jake Stewart and Todd Brewer. And I have some thoughts, but I want to hear yours first, man.
Well, we got to see Stewart, multiple times throughout the year, and he had clearly separated himself from the pack, up here, and that's why we had him ranked as our number one. Hadn't got to get a look at Brewer, but heard nothing but good things coming from him all year. Got to see him at the state duels, and he Brewer stood out to me because with the robe,
Yeah.
he's walking around with the robe and stuff, and from my understanding from you, that's a throwback, wrestling thing to do. And so, he's bringing some swag out there, but he looked good at the state duels as well.
And the best part about that, he wrestled 113 at the state duels. So we didn't even know what he was going to look like at 106.
Right, right. And that's kind of what I was fixing to get into is like, but we didn't see him at this weight. And so that's kind of where we had Stewart as the number one there. But I'll tell you what, man, that was a clash of titans. He looked great out there. Like he really did, man. Ended up winning a tight one. It was a tight one.
Well, it was very competitive, and I'm not gonna lie. I mean, I know we've watched Jake Stewart. I've been very impressed with him all season. I thought this was gonna be his to lose, but then I heard when I heard Todd was dropping down to 106, that's when it turned into a question mark.
Yep.
Because I know he looked solid at 113, and so I knew he was going to be competitive. But like I said, I didn't know what that was going to do to shake things up, and that's really why we put you at the number two. Is just we didn't really know, but we knew with Jake Stewart what he could do at 106.
Right.
But in the back of my mind, I was like, it could go either way.
Yeah.
And I'll even add the one further. As Todd Brewer, he made sure he got to know us a little bit. He kept walking by the table. He gave us a lot of ducks, which I really appreciate. Shout out to Todd. And with our conversation with Daniel Mosley, their head coach, I believe their father, Kyle Brewer, Ohio native, and I think he had a nice background in wrestling in Ohio, and I imagine that's where he got that robe inspiration from. Because I imagine when his father wrestled, I imagine maybe his team had some robes. Hey, hit us up and let us know about that. And
Right.
But anyway, in that finals match, barn burner.
Yeah.
He did it was a high level match, tit for tat, and Todd did everything he needed to do to gut that one out. I mean, it was a 7-6 decision, down to the wire. Probably my top 3 favorite finals match.
Yeah.
Because it was very exciting, very high level, and hey, you got it, buddy. And so congratulations to Todd, and hey, Jake, I know it sucks to lose that finals match, and I know that's something you had your heart on, and that's disappointing. But you're a young kid, and you got multiple years ahead of you. You wrestle for a solid club. You got good coaches. You're gonna be right back in that fight next year.
That's right. But both of them gentlemen are ninth graders, so got a few more years for y'all to figure this one out. See who can split the series. But hey, that's just an assumption because, like you said, you got some of these other guys, like your Gage hits, and I mean your Jensen hit. I'm sorry, your Jensen hits, and your Kai Clowers. They're gonna be back.
All right, yeah, and again, Mauskowitz. I mean, with Brewer, I mean, Mauskowitz can level up too.
Oh yeah, another ninth grader.
And then gosh, and Daniel Lindsay. I mean, the Mauskowitz-Lindsay match 5-2. That's pretty close, and so. As they grow older and develop more, I mean,
Lindsay's a 7th grader.
Oh my goodness! So again, I imagine you're going to hear these names a lot moving forward, and I'm looking forward to it. And that's these types of performances and these types of athletes is what makes this sport so exciting. But moving on to 113, I want to start again, kind of more on the back side before we kind of focus on that front side. Silas Metz, I'm really impressed with you, man. You had a runner-up finish last year, which is, that's disappointing, I imagine, for you. And then, I'm sure you had that burning sensation moving into this season. You want to get your get back and get that finals again. And unfortunately, you ran into Jaden Gibson in the semifinals, and Gibson pulled that one out. And to suffer that disappointment to not make the finals again and get that opportunity to wrestle back for that third place and then win that third and fourth place match in a dominant fashion over an extremely talented wrestler, Ace McCracken.
Yep.
That's a performance to be very proud of, young man. And I mean, and you're only a ninth grader too, so keep grinding. Shout out to Coach Ladowski out of Oak Grove. I know you have a good coach in him, and if you just put in the work in the off season, you're going to keep climbing that ladder, and hey, you're going to have another shot next year as well. Ace McCracken, you looked fantastic all season. You picked up some big wins over Eric Swift. You had a really solid showing at the North half. Again, you just ran into a killer named Allspaw.
Yeah.
And so, this was a competitive weight class. Those top four names, Gibson, Allspaw, Metz, McCracken, y'all are tough.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, there's some weight classes both on the boys side and the girls side where it's like, okay, well, this one or these two set themselves apart from the pack. These four have set themselves apart. And so, McCracken and Metz certainly impressed me a lot. I mean, we've bragged about Ace McCracken all season, and so I wanted to give Metz his props. Ace, buddy, you know how we feel about you. We know how talented you are, and we know you're going to bounce back from this and get better. Other notable performance, I'm really proud of you, Dylan Hubble. Yeah. You put in a lot of work this season. I know you wanted this bad, and I know you probably wanted to finish higher, but fifth in this weight class, we already talked about those top four guys are killers, and finishing number 5, so hey, that's pretty dang good to me, man. And you're a senior, and you and I have already talked about this. If you want to, your journey's only over if you want it to be. I think you have the building blocks to keep moving on and getting better. And last thing I want to say, Landon Oaks, dude, seventh place as a 7th grader.
Yeah.
Very, very sharp, especially, you took a tough one. I know you had a tough loss against Broussard. St. Patrick's first round. So you lost first round and then you clawed your way back to the podium. And then, I saw a difference in your style. After that first round loss, you turned it on. Aggression, forward pressure, taking them down, cutting them. You were an animal and a man on a mission. You got on the podium and you're just going to keep on climbing, man.
Yep.
And before we get into the finals match, what else would you think about the backside in those first round matches?
Yeah, I mean that was kind of where I was. Another one, Wyatt Cole of Lewisburg, another 9th grader. He ended up bad draw, got Gibson off the bat, and we know how Gibson ended up doing in that one. But that's another wrestler that I think has a ton of potential. 9th grader, he's got some years to develop, and this is another one of those weight classes. Man, it was just loaded.
It was, man.
It was loaded. I mean, there was a lot of tough competition. This is kind of one of the first weight classes that we're coming up on where I'm just like, man, this was a tough bracket. Like any way you went about it, whether you were on the top side, bottom side, like you're gonna have your hands full if you wanted to make it. Just if you wanted to survive to get to on the podium, like you're gonna have to wrestle well, in this bracket, and. Another one, Shanapin Weaver, New Albany wrestler, first year wrestler, first year program. Man, like you were just in one of the toughest brackets out there, dude. Like, that's just all it was, but, he ended up qualifying for state, made it to state, that in itself, as a first year wrestler in a weight class like this, that's commendable.
Yeah. It was tough. You had Silas Metz first round. And then you battled back, and you're almost there. And it happens, dude. In your 9th grade, you keep climbing that ladder. Hey, you got a good club here just down the road from you. So, get in the off season, get some training in. I imagine you're going to keep climbing that ladder as well. Maybe you'll get on the podium next year. Of course, I got a shout out to Butler and Collins. Butler of Ocean Springs, Collins of St. Martin. I imagine you had to run into the All-Spa and the Mets quite a bit. And but hey, you battled. You ran into those buzzsaws. You battled back. You got on the podium again. Just placing in this bracket is, I think, impressive and something to be very proud of. You're all very young. Keep training in the off season. You guys are going to keep getting better and better. Which brings us
to that finals, man.
To the 2 big names.
Now, I'll lead off with talking about Caden Alspot, and that was one of the ones we got to interview with. Very impressed with that young man. Like, just who he is, his mindset, like his mental approach to wrestling, his mental approach to, like he has goals. He knows where he wants to go. He knows what he wants to do, and him and his brother both. Speaking with them, like they're putting in the work.
Oh yeah,
They are putting in the work. He's only in the 10th grade. 44-5 on the season coming in here. So there's 50 matches just
yeah,
this year.
and a lot of them out of state.
Yeah, yeah, and finding a lot of success. He was one of the wrestlers that, man, I was impressed with his skill set. Like very much so. Like
Yeah,
he really has a well tuned skill set, and he's got time to keep building it. And I'm very excited to see this young man for the next 2 years and what he's able to come up with. Um, Congratulations, Jaden Gibson, man. Way to go out. He was a senior this year. We saw him, pick up the big win against Alspa in the state duels, and that's kind of where, I almost, I made that argument that I'm like, man, you kind of put Gibson at number one. He beat the number one guy. You put him at number one. It's like I understand the criteria and how it played out and why it played out that way, but I'm about giving credit where credit's due, and I think when you beat the top guy, you become the top guy.
yeah, 100%.
And then, man, he was able to pull it off again. Alspa, he was just he just looked like the like the better skilled wrestler. But Jaden, very good positional awareness. Even though he got himself out of position a couple times, his recoveries were great. His strength really helped him. He leaned into that to help kind of power through some of these positions, and man, and he did. And whenever he caught him, he caught him.
Indeed, yeah. And kind of circling back at the start of the show when we are giving David Sutherland props, I mean, it's so important. One thing I love about these interviews is it creates a little bit of a personal connection with these wrestlers. I'm a huge fan of just skill and talent, and so All Spa and the Carols, I mean, and the Charade. I mean, you guys I've just been fans of in general because I've enjoyed watching you wrestle. But sitting down and talking with you and kind of getting the vibe and watching you interact with your teammates, I have no qualms wearing Van Cleve wrestling. Because now I am now a legitimate fan of the All Spa boys and the Carroll. Well, I didn't meet Quentin, but Braden Carroll, and then Jordan Sherrod because they're just good kids, and you can just tell. And so I'm really rooting for you, buddy, to bounce back off of this. I know you're going to do great, and I'll just be echoing what Tim said. You are extremely talented. You can just see it in your wrestling. But Jaden, my gosh, dude, you're a man on a mission this season. I know you had a chip on your shoulder from seasons previous. I know the runner-up finish from 2 years ago, not being eligible last season. This was your last shot, and you made the most of that moment. And where some dudes will crumble, I mean, both matches, it was almost a repeat.
Mm-hmm.
Down by 10, third period, I have to make something happen. He made something happen, and he got it. And he won with grace and pride, and I'm hats off to you, man. I'm really proud of you, and I think the state of Mississippi is proud of you, and we hope you go on to do bigger and better things in life. And so, congratulations to Jaden. Also, you'll bounce back, and all the other wrestlers. You're gonna keep climbing the ladder. Like again, 113 is one of those weight classes where there's a lot of names here that I'm glad they're sticking in the system. They're gonna keep training, and hey, we'll see them again next year.
Absolutely.
Right. So 120. This one was interesting because this is the one where I believe Quentin Carroll unfortunately had a season-ending injury and wasn't able to compete. We hate to see it. I hate to see a season end like that, especially with the accomplishments he's had in previous seasons. But hey, tragedy happens, and that gave Alejandro Adoria the window he needed to make that state title run.
Absolutely.
Because, which I feel extremely guilty about this because clearly you're a talented guy, 38-3, ninth grade. You've clearly had a fantastic season, but I just, like we say this a lot, we just don't have much interaction with the South. We don't get to see too much Southern wrestling, which I hope in the future as the Mississippi Wrestling Network grows, we'll get more opportunities to see you guys. And so when we walked in, I think we had you ranked second, but that was entirely based on what I saw on track, not what I saw with my own eyes. And so I was kind of a question mark to what was going to happen. Buddy, you lived up to what all those expectations. I mean, you performed extremely well. Fall, major decision, fall, and then that last match we'll circle back to it here in a second because I want to talk about the quarters and the semis and all that. But amazing performance by Adoria. Another big names I really want to talk. The names I really want to get to. Lakoko of St. Patrick's. You just battled
Yeah,
every match you had. I
he
was
looked good.
I love Tim's saying of winning the exchanges, and you put yourself in a lot of exchanges, and you won some, you lost some, but you were giving yourself every opportunity to win a match. And so those are my thoughts when I saw that name Lakoko pop up. I was like, this it's gonna be a battle. And unfortunately, we got that sixth place finish, but if I'm not mistaken, yeah, ninth grade. So you got plenty of time to recoup and recover and go back to the drawing board and work. And so I imagine we're going to see more of you. Miller of Center Hill, also another freshman. I knew you were special when you came to 3C and trained a little bit. I knew you had the ability to be good at this sport, and you put that on display with that fifth place finish. Same thing that I said about Lakoko. You put yourself in those exchanges. You had every opportunity. You won some, you lost some. You ended up finishing pretty well. Actually, looking at these names, this 120 bracket
Yeah,
was pretty competitive.
it was, man.
Like now that we're talking about it, I'm looking at it because like Wesley Russell, I know
Yep.
how talented you are, man. Coming off that third place finish, ended up at seventh, and I watched a lot of your matches. Again, another one of those where you just lost a couple of exchanges.
Yep. First year wrestler, first year program. Seeing him from the beginning of the season to where he ended up finishing at North Half and then to make the podium at State. Hey, that's very commendable, young man. Like, you got a bright future ahead of you.
Especially
Eighth grade.
Yeah, thank you.
Eighth grade, like he's got plenty of time to work and improve. And, he's another one of them kids. He didn't play any other sports. Like, they were like, oh, you got wrestling? Yeah, I think I'll give it a try. Hey, you found it. You found it.
Which, hey, you're just down the road in Pontotoc. I hope to see you up here over the summer, or I just hope to hear that you're training over the summer because the ceiling for you is very high.
Yep.
You and your brother, but we'll talk about him later on. And I'd be remiss if I didn't shout out Colton Morrow. What a season, man! I mean, the level you jumped from the previous season to this season is very remarkable, young man. And I know you've trained here a couple of times, and you're a hard worker and you deserve success. And I think you found it. I mean, you just bumped into some really talented kids. Adoria in the semifinals, and then Wigington of Oak Grove in the third and fourth place. Which Wigington,
Yeah.
another one of those impressive kids who showed a lot of skill. And then Tillman of Van Cleve, hey, shout out to you, man. All the compliments we gave those other wrestlers equally apply to you. You put yourself in a position to win. Just you lost. I mean, there's very few wrestling matches in this 120 weight class where it's like guys got mollywopped.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, some scores like the Lakoko Miller 7-0. But that's kind of deceiving. With wrestling, you see falls, you see majors, but with the scoring system, you can rack up points pretty quickly. With falls, guys can get caught. You can only really appreciate the competitive nature of these matches with your own eyes.
Yeah.
And most of these matches were highly competitive.
Right. And then, talking about like a 7-0, it's like, man, you've seen, I couldn't tell you how many 7-point sequences I saw at the tournament. So it's
Right.
like, dude, like that could have happened in 3 seconds out of 3 periods.
Exactly. And then, exactly. It can happen in a split second. And it just is what it is.
That's
And
right.
that's what makes wrestling exciting now with these rule changes that matches are much more higher scoring, and it rewards highly offensive, aggressive wrestling. Now, with that said, Adoria versus Swift.
Man, that was a barn burner. It was a really good match. But man, Edoria, he just found a way.
He did.
He found a way to get it done. Said, man, he was one of the ones that, like, when unfortunately, Quentin Carroll wasn't able to make it due to injury, and this young man, he capitalized. We heard his name a couple times, but he wasn't probably getting the rub that he deserved.
Mm-hmm.
Had a tall task ahead of him against Eric Swift in the finals, and man, he got it done. They, like I said, they went in tight match. I believe they went into overtime.
It did. And it's the circumstances were unfortunate, but at the same, so what happened was is most of Adoria's points that he scored were off of clasping calls. Eric got out of position. He clasped his hands. I know he got. I think it happened twice, and so that got him 2 points. And Adoria got an escape to force overtime, and then that big moment, Adoria capitalized.
Yep.
And so, it is what it is. People, and then this is probably something we're going to revisit throughout this recap. People get upset with the officials and penalty points, this and that, and it's like, hey, that wrestler shouldn't have locked his hands. That's wrestling 101. Don't clasp when you're on the mat, and you know, it's just unfortunate, and it's hopefully it's a lesson that wrestlers can look at and learn moving forward, and coaches can learn moving forward to really harp on these guys to not touch their hands. I mean, this is locked hands technically. All your hands have to do is touch, and this is an unfortunate lesson for Swift. But hey, we talked briefly after that match. He seemed to be in good spirits. I believe his plans are not involving college wrestling, but if he wants to, he certainly can. He has the talent. This is something I've said all season. I think Swift's biggest deficit was that he just didn't really have a competitive room to elevate him to a higher level. And so if he were to get in such a room, I think we'd be hearing some big things from him. But with that said, I mean, Adoria, for the record, I'm not taking anything away from Adoria because of those penalty points. Like I said, you had the tournament of your life, buddy, and congratulations, you earned that. I mean, that sudden victory takedown was slick, it was pretty, and hey, and you won it with grace and excitement, and I was happy to see it. And Eric, I'm sorry, man, but hey, life goes on, and I know you're destined for bigger and better things as well. Because hey, he's a smart kid, he's a good kid, and I think everything will be fine.
Absolutely. All right. Let's get into the 126 pounds right here.
And for the record, folks, we have our laptops, we have the brackets up. You might see us looking down and moving our hands around. It's because we wanted to make sure we had the information here and we got it right. With that being said, dude, man, I feel like I want to take if I had a nickel for as many times as I want to say competitive, because here we go again. 126 was pretty competitive.
Yeah.
A lot of names, a lot of good matches. Where would you like to start?
Like I said, man, just giving some kudos right here on the back side of this bracket. You had Meadows from East Central.
Yes.
Like, man, he looked great, dude. He really did. He ended up bumping against Perez in the semis and wrestled back and got that third place finish. First time I got to look at Spain from St. Patrick's, that was a heck of a match. He's another one that, man, he impressed me, wrestling back, getting into that third place match that day. First time I'd got to see either one of these young men wrestle this year. Very impressed by them. Another one, Maxim Chuck from Lewisburg. I've gotten to see him, a few times this year. He wrestled well. Ended up dropping the fifth place match to Bates. Who also, probably a disappointing finish for Bates. Based off of the season he'd been having. But again, he another bad luck of the draw. Kind of in the bracket, and he wrestled some stout competition. He had to bump up against Spain, and then wrestle back in there. He picked up some good wins. Let's see. There was another one that stood out.
I like Camden Shaw. I think he did very well. Again, he just bumped up against tough names. I mean, it's tough. I mean, that seventh place finish is probably not what you wanted, but like I said, between the Meadows and Spain and Bates, Allspa, I mean, it just is what it is. I mean, you bumped into some buzzsaws, and hey, you finished strong. You got on the podium, and I wish you had more time left because I think you have a lot of potential. But hey, you have a state medal to look back on and be proud of. I think, Tim, you're absolutely right. Bates lost in overtime to Spain, and hey, he looked a little in his head in that match, unfortunately. But then after that, I mean, it looks like he got that monkey off his back. He looked true to form, and every match he wrestled thereafter, he was, in form, and he wrestled very well. to get that fifth place finish. I also thought Spain and Meadows were very impressive. I'm glad I got to see them because that was the first time I saw them wrestle, and I was very impressed with their performance. Corey Taylor, I mean, you didn't make the podium, man, but you wrestled with a lot of pride and a lot of gumption, and I think we're all very proud of you and how you wrestled. And I know you'll be back ninth grade. We'll climb that ladder. And um, aside from that, man, I want to get into Chris Perez before I get into off spa.
Yeah.
Chris Perez. Let me double check to make sure. You're one of those wrestlers who I'm really sad as a 12th grader because you were a stud last year. You've even become even better this year, and dare I say, maybe one of the better wrestlers in the state. Just I don't care if that's controversial. I mean, I've watched a lot of wrestling. The way you move, you hold position, you're aggressive, you have fantastic defense, good offense, and that was all on display bumping up against one of the best wrestlers in the state, who's already proven to be one of the best wrestlers of the state, Chase Allspaw.
Yeah.
I mean, you lost to him 4-0 at dual state, and then you lost 5-2 in the state finals, and you proved that you have the talent and the ability, and if you so choose, you could continue on to the next level. But with that said, Chase Allspaw, my goodness, dude.
Man.
The Allspaw brothers, and Chase especially, talent.
Yeah.
And he's also another kid we interviewed who, hey, I'm just a fan of you guys now.
Yeah.
Whether you like it or not, I like Chase and Caden Allspaw.
I'll tell you what stood out to me the most about him is we knew who Allspaw was getting first. Young man from South Pontotoc, Hayden Leopard. And we're sitting there, talk about, last year's performance, making it to the finals this year. The only thing he said was, man, I got Hayden Leopard from South Pontotoc. That's my focus.
Which
he ain't looking past anybody. All he kept talking about was, hey, I'm just trying to get better. Every time I go out there, I got this man next, and I just want to get better. And that right there was very impressive, coming from that young man.
Right, because he personified another thing we preach in this gym is, he said last season he overlooked that semifinals match. He was just so focused on that finals match, and he got upset in the semis. And he said, not this year.
Yep.
Every match is important, which, that's what I mean. It's cliche, but that's what I tell my guys is like, don't overlook even the best kids we train here. Every match is a state finals match. I don't care if he has an 0-12 record. He can headlock you and pin you.
Yep.
So you better take this seriously. And Chase, you took every match seriously, and you looked fantastic all tournament. And so, I was a big fan of Perez. I'm bummed out that actually I can't even say I'm bummed out because I like Chase too. I mean,
yeah, it's just more if we got to see Perez, perform and grow throughout the season. I think that's kind of what where it's like you kind of want to see him do well. But then, like I said, man, we sat down and we talked with Chase Allspaw, and man, like, what a great kid. What a great kid, and he's putting in the work. He's got the right mindset. Either way that one would have went, man, I would have been happy and for the winner, and kind of disappointed, for the one who got the silver. But man, those are two of the absolute best wrestlers in the state right there, especially in that weight class.
And I would be remiss if I didn't shout out Xavier Cote. He's the guy with the braids from Picayune.
Yeah.
He just ran into some tough kids.
Yeah.
And he's 10th grade. He's going to bounce back, and he has a good attitude, man. I bumped into him a couple times, and he smiled, and we shot the breeze for a little bit, and I'm going to be rooting for him moving forward. And Picayune has a good program down there, and I believe if they're going to keep climbing the ladder, and he's going to be one of the names that we're going to be talking about in those placing matches come next year.
Absolutely, especially after talking with their coach and kind of getting a feel of the program that they're running and the culture that they're building. I think it'll just be a matter of time before he's right there at the top of this weight class.
100%, man. 132. Oh, I don't even know where to start, dude. This was yet another fun weight class. I kind of want to start on the bottom of the bracket because there's one name who we talk about growth and development and wrestling in the off season, and one kid that I think jumped levels in the off season was DeFlippo of St. Patrick.
Yeah.
Maybe my memory's fuzzy, but I just don't remember being blown away by him last season. I knew his name. I knew he wrestled well. I knew he was competitive. But watching him wrestle this year, it's like this is the guy.
Yep.
He is tough. He is really good. His technique is solid. He just ran into a kid named Gage Hit. And
Yeah.
Gage Hit is a lot of dudes' kryptonite because he is a funky rubber band man, dude.
Yeah.
And he's a dude who can't get. It's very difficult to turn him, very difficult to pin him, very difficult to take him down, and he can cancel out a lot of kids' strategies, and it showed. And Hit took him to the edge, took him into overtime, and seized on his opportunity, and he got it. And I believe this is I might need to be fact checked, but I believe this is Gage Hit's second time in the finals. Um, and yeah, he beat a really quality kid to get to that finals match. And I can only imagine DeFlippo's. It's tough losing that semifinals, and he battled all the way back to that third and fourth place match against another kid who I have immense respect for, Levi Gooch at North Pontotoc.
Yep.
Gooch is just a natural. He's a hard worker. He has great technique. I mean, you can hardly tell he's only been wrestling for a couple of years.
Yeah.
He has high level technique, high level performance, high level athlete, and DeFlippo took that one. And so DeFlippo and Gooch, I mean, what else can I say about you guys? I mean, I'm really impressed with how you've developed and who you guys are as wrestlers. I know Gooch is a wonderful kid. Um, you know, like I said, what else can I really say? And last couple names. Oh, I wanted two other names before we get to the finals match that I wanted to do, and then I'll pass it off to you. Joaquin of St. Martin. Um, it just is what it is. I think he kind of flew under the radar for most of the season. That's a name I hadn't really even heard of up here.
Yeah. Me either.
And every match I watched him, he was in it.
Yeah.
He was in every single match that he wrestled. I mean, he just lost some exchanges. Let me just kind of peek in the bracket real quick. I don't really think he was a kid who got whopped by anybody, but he just lost some exchanges.
Mm-hmm.
He got caught a little bit, dropped some takedowns here and there.
Well, he was kind of one of the ones where it's like his aggression did kind of bite him a couple times.
Yeah, got a little too forward sometimes.
Yeah.
But I was really impressed with him. A kid that I'm a little bummed out. Again, I see you're a senior dude, and if you just had some more refinement, I think would really benefit you. And but again, I wanted to give you props. And Braxton Sandlin, dude, he's a kid I really enjoy. He always has a smile on his face, and he seems to be, just a man of good vibes. And so he's a kid that's easy to root for. And he's a kid who's trained here a couple times, and so I know what he's capable of doing. And he's a underclassman, I believe. And so as we continue to polish things out and develop, I think he'll climb much higher than sixth. And with that said,
Gavin Shaner. That's another one. I mean, he won his first match, but then he bumped into the Braden Carroll, man. I mean, it is what it is. He bumped into him, and but it's like he's
Carroll
one.
and Sandlin, yeah, that's tough.
Yeah, it's like, man, like he ended up just getting a couple tough matchups, back to back after picking up first round win, and I've been impressed with him this season. Like throughout the season, he took some bumps. He won some matches that I thought he should win, but then he also lost some matches that I thought he should have won. But then come state duels, super clutch performance to secure that third place spot for his team, Oxford. Then, the North half individuals, looked great, wrestled very well. And then, got here, thought he was looking great, picked up that, 9-5 decision win right there to start the day. He was looking in form, but then, like I said, man, he just ran into Braden Carroll.
Which the same thing could be said about Oscar Cheras.
Tough draw. Tough draw.
It is, man. I mean, I have mixed feelings about it. And this is a topic that we're going to keep coming back to over and over again, where the state tournament's just getting competitive. That's it, man. I mean, and then upsets happen and people drop matches. And Oscar, I think you didn't place, but I think you are so talented in your own right. I don't know how long you've been only wrestling for about 2 years, I believe.
Yeah.
And I would have never guessed it. I assumed you had been wrestling for much longer, or at least had a jiu-jitsu background or something, but apparently you've only been wrestling for 2 years and you looked really good. I think you'd be another investment wrestler where, get you in a room, redshirt you, if that's something you're interested in, of course. I know you're upset with what happened, but your performance is something to be proud of. I'm sure your coaches are very proud of it. And hey, as an outside observer and as a fan of wrestling, I was very proud of your performance. And I can say the same about Emmanuel Smith of Olive Branch. I know you didn't get on the podium either, but gosh, you were close, and as
Yeah.
a first year wrestler, first year program, that was big. Um, yeah, I mean, a lot of these names just a couple exchanges away from getting on that podium. And it's just
Yeah.
a function of, hey, we're starting to become competitive.
Yeah.
It is what it is. You're not guaranteed a place just because you showed up or just because you know a little bit more technique than the other person. Like, you got to be an all around quality wrestler now to really place, especially those top five placements. But
Yeah.
just to get on that podium, you got to have it all, you know, which
Brings
hit
us to that finals match.
hitting Carroll.
It was a good match, man.
Listen, I have nothing but love and respect for Gage Hit, and I expect to see you in the summer, my dude. We got a lot of things to work on, but hey, Braden Carroll, just like the All Spas, just like his brother, they have set themselves apart. They're just wrestling at a different. They're just in a different gear right now.
Yep.
He has a 42-7 record going into the state tournament. A lot of those matches are from out of state competition, and it showed. Tech fall in the finals, and Gage. I mean, he gave him
And
everything he had.
yeah, and then kind of going back to like what you're talking about, where like Gage, he's just physically like he's very hard to pin. Like he's rubbery, he's loose in the shoulders, and you saw Carroll, constantly trying to work that and get in there, and that's why he ended up with a tech fall instead of a fall. Like he just could not get that finish on Gage Hit, but through those exchanges, he had racked up the points, and man, I mean, he looked great. And that was another one though, man. When we interviewed him, you know, he looks up to his brother.
Yeah.
Like that was awesome to hear. And he went out there and man, like, he looked like a man on a mission,
Oh yeah.
all business, and man, he went and handled it. And congratulations, Braden Carroll.
Oh yeah. Which you gotta fact check me about it. Guys, bear with us. We get a lot of information. Sometimes my brain doesn't process all of it the best. I believe this was his first state title, whereas Quentin had won multiple prior to. So I think this was elusive for him, and I think he wanted this bad because I'm pretty sure he dropped it in the finals last year. So this was big for him, and like I said, he's an easy kid to root for. I mean, he was very polite to us, very kind, and he said a lot of really great things. Gage, you know how I feel about you, man. And like I said, I hope to see you in this room over the summer, or I'll come up there to where you're at and train because I want to see you get on that podium as well. I want to see success for you, and it's just a matter of time. I think you're one of those wrestlers where it's just a matter of time before you're on top of that podium. So again, another really competitive weight class. A lot of impressive performances. Everyone who plays should be very proud of how they did.
Absolutely.
Even the ones who didn't place, be proud of how you did. Um, So, bringing us to 130, 138. Oh boy,
This one had some shakeups in it.
Oh gosh, I might get that crow down because this was probably one of the only weight classes that was a complete. The bracket got busted.
Yeah.
Everything that we predicted, not just us, I think everyone got surprised. And hey, why don't you lead us off, man? Give me your thoughts out the gate.
Well, this was, like you said, this was a bracket buster right here. I think this kind of goes kind of like along with like a March Madness bracket where like nobody got it right.
Mm-hmm.
You said you had a couple huge upsets in this one right here. Pierce over Murphy. That was a big upset, but I think, probably one of the biggest upsets in the whole tournament was, Vivian over Logan Bradley. That was huge. That was very unexpected. I didn't see that coming. Especially because, like I said, we've gotten to see them wrestle, a lot this year.
Yeah.
And I, just being honest, man, I just thought Bradley just was too much for him.
Oh, I mean it was. I mean, it just is what it is. Logan Bradley was dominating the match, and Vivian caught him.
Yep.
And it's he put himself in a position to win, and he got it done.
Yep.
And unfortunately, Bradley then dropped out with a medical forfeit. I think he banged up his shoulder a little bit, but I mean, amazing performance by Vivian. I mean, he turned it. I mean, he peaked at the right time of the season. I mean, he had a really good performance at the North Half State tournament. Fantastic showing at the state tournament. And hey, Justin Pierce. I mean, we didn't have you ranked, and I'll just let the cat out of the bag and pull the curtain back. A lot of our rankings going into state were based off of that North South performance. I weighted that very heavily in terms of how you did at North South State in terms of your ranking, and you finished fifth at South State, and so it's you know just is what it is. And then hey, you beat Murphy, you beat Sudeth. We know how good Mark Sudeth of Oxford is, and then you win that state title over Vivian. I mean,
Huge.
I mean,
Huge.
the movie writes itself, and it's your senior year. The script writes itself. I mean, what a tremendous performance by Justin Pierce of East Central. Big for that program. Very, I'm sure your whole community is proud of you, and hey, we're impressed by you. And Vivian, we're impressed by how you did. Of course, Tony Brewer, and Jacobs of Van Cleve. You guys battling back to that third and fourth. Ultimately, Jacobs being the victor. But again, just like everyone else, getting bumped to that backside and wrestling through and beating some of the names you beat to get to that third and fourth. Very impressive, boys.
Yep.
And then,
of course, you got some honorable mentions,
yeah.
for sure. Mark Sutter, the Oxford, he was another one bumped up to Pierce in the semis. It is what it is, brother.
Yeah.
I mean, it is what it is. And then let's see, there was one other one, Carter Cherry of Center Hill. I thought he,
he fought.
Yeah, he fought all day. Again, he just got some tough matchups throughout the day. And then there was one more. Let me see.
I like Matt.
Lions of Oak Grove.
Oh, yeah.
Lions of Oak Grove. Like he showed up. He again got a tough matchup. First round. He battled back. Ended up getting seventh place finish over Mankin, who he dropped the first match to. So that was where it was impressive for me with him. Coming back and getting that lick back in the same tournament.
And I was gonna say I like Mankin. I'm glad he dropped down to 38. I thought he was far more competitive. He just lost a couple of exchanges this weekend to get him to that seventh and eighth place match, and then it just is what it is. He dropped that one too, but hey, he placed, and as a freshman, it's good to get a state medal. Unfortunately, I was talking to his coaches at the very end of the day. I think he's moving to Texas, so that's probably the last we're gonna see Mankin in the state of Mississippi, but I think he has a bright future ahead of him, just like Lyons. He has another year ahead of him. Shoot, a lot of these guys, except for Pierce, I think all these guys are coming back. So I expect good things. I want to give an honorable mention to Josiah Skidmore. Dude, I mean, you got skills, and I know you're going to keep developing those skills, but you had Justin Pierce first round, and then you had Mankin on the backside. And so you just ran into two really tough kids, but hey, you're ninth grade, so you just keep on moving on, and you'll get there, man. And again, of course, like I said, Jacobs Brewer, congratulations on that third and fourth place finish. Another weight class that was very tough.
Yeah, absolutely. Which brings us to 144 pounds. Just kind of starting this one off, Ethan Russell of Pontotoc, took a bump early, wrestled back, picked up another win. Then, unfortunately, came across old Carson Hale, and it is what it is. But first year wrestler, first year program. You were one of the few that made it. Qualified for the state tournament. You went out there, you picked up a win in the state tournament, and so hey, man, again, got a club right here down the road from you. Hope to see you in here with your brother Wesley. I think both of y'all have a bright future. You got one more year to get back in there and get that back, man.
Right. I mean, with Russell, it's just like we've been saying, you had a tough first round, and then you bumped into another stud. I want to do a little personal story real quick. Because I want to make sure this is very clear, because we keep talking about you keep bumping into a tough first round, and that first round is determined by your north half, south half finish. And so I want to tell a little story with my own life with my older brother, Joshua Deere. So my brother was ranked 10th in the state. He was ranked first in his district. He had a really good seed going in the district tournament. In Iowa, at that time, only the top two guys go to state with a true second. So if you got third, you can battle back for second. he got to that finals match, and then and the way Iowa State works is the number one goes against the number two guy, and it's just kind of random, right? Uh, in the finals, he wrestled this kid from Davenport West, and he's whooped him all season long. And the finals match starts. My brother, his best shot was a knee pull outside single, and so he gets that outside single. He starts driving. He gets spladled.
Oh
First time I've ever seen a spladle in my life was watching my older brother get spladled in the finals of districts. And God, that was a hard one, as you can imagine. His senior season, his only time. Anyway, but he battled back. He got second, but first round, nationally ranked wrestler, drops it. Right. Second round, he gets a kid he handles, but then the kid he wrestles back for that blood round. Oh gosh, he's from Clinton, Iowa. He won 3 national titles for Wartburg. I'm so sorry I'm blanking on your name, but yeah, he ran into a killer and he lost, and he didn't get to place at state his senior season, his only time at the state tournament. So that story is just to tell how important it is those qualifying tournaments are, and how that in theory, the state tournament's most important season. No, I am convinced, hand to God, that qualifier is just as important, because how you place there is that first round draw. A lot of these wrestlers, like Ethan Russell, probably could have got on the podium depending on if he had a better finish at that north half.
Yeah.
And that can be said for a lot of wrestlers. And so I'll echo what Tim said. Russell, you've developed a lot over that season. Put in the work in the offseason, come back stronger next season. But keep moving, Carson Hale. Hey,
Yep.
you know how I feel about you, buddy. You're one of my boys. You're one of my favorites. You did fantastic. I know we got really disappointed that we dropped that one to Porter Vaughn, another one of those talented athletes, Vaughn. But you wrestled back to that third and fourth, and unfortunately, we dropped that one to Colton Gilbert, which we'll circle back to him. But, Carson, you're just in ninth grade, dude. You're going to be just fine. I think you're one of the best dudes in the state. We just got to keep tweaking things. And before I hand it back, I want to say one more thing to Cameron McIntyre. On paper, I think he's a guy that was overlooked by a lot of coaches, by a lot of athletes. I've been saying for weeks, you're my dark horse, and I can say that because you train at 3C, and like I said, I got to see firsthand what you were capable of, and the grit you had, and the attitude you had, and I believed in you that you could do very well at this tournament. But DeSoto Central must have broken all the mirrors on the way to the state tournament, because they had nothing but bad luck.
Yeah.
Because as you're gaining momentum, your shoulder gets dislocated, and you had to pull out of the tournament against Carson Hale, and that sucks.
Yeah.
But hey, you got a state medal, man. I'm very proud of you for that performance, and hey, you got something to look back on moving forward. And there's a couple other names I got, but I feel like I've been talking too long. So
Dylan Looking Bill was another
yes,
one.
yes,
Man, I tell you, he ended up running into that buzzsaw Trip Nowlin. But dude, like, he was looking good. Started out, picked up the win over Taylor from Center Hill, then come out, got another win over Steele from St. Martin. And then in the semis, like I said, Trip Nowlin, and we know how that one ends up. And then Colton Gilbert from Van Cleve, he took that bump against Porter Vaughn in the semis, wrestled back, ended up getting third. He was another one we got to interview. Very confident in himself, and he went out there and he wrestled that way. Unfortunately, didn't go his way, once. But hey, he was a tough cat out there, man, and he represented himself well.
Yeah, I mean, Looking Bill is another one I wanted to bring up. I mean, yeah, his only 2 losses of the tournament were probably 2 of the best kids in the state. I mean, Nowlin and Hale.
Yep.
And he's a kid who I have a lot of confidence for. I believe he's going to keep climbing that ladder. And again, Gilbert, obviously, I think you said enough about that. He's a talented kid in his right. How about that finals match?
Man, it's something that, I said going into this, when we were, doing like a little north half recap video, just talking about Tripp's performance there. Man, I just firmly believed it was his to lose. I believe the only person that could have beat Tripp this year was Tripp. And dude, just absolute domination through this tournament. Like I don't know what else you said. Like me personally, I had Trip Nallen as my most outstanding wrestler of the tournament. Uh, Tech fall, tech fall. Like
Oh yeah, I mean,
just going out there, putting his foot on the gas, and just breaking these
right.
dudes, man. Like I mean, he looked great out there.
Which, falls are awesome, um, but I think tech falls are the standard of high class wrestling and stud wrestling. And just I mean, just rewatch the tournament. It's just no one had an answer for him.
Yeah,
Highlight catch and release, constantly taken down. No one had an answer for any of his shots or his offense. I'm gonna do my best not to hype up Trip because just our relationship that I have with him, and let's just say he had a really great tournament. That's all. That's all I'll say about that. And actually, no. Let me expand on that a little bit further. I mean, he had a heartbreak last year. I mean, that was really hard to watch him drop that to DePrero last year. And you want to talk about the off-season training? I don't think we took more than 2 or 3 weeks off before we trained 2 to 3 times a week until this weekend.
yep,
No, we didn't let off the gas for almost a year. And this moment was a long time coming. I tell you what. And, we're going to talk more about this at the 150s with my reaction to that finals match. But let me plant the seeds of that conversation now. To all the coaches out there, you understand, and the parents, you understand. I would hope, as you watch your own athletes, it's just the work, the sacrifice, the dedication, the tears, the highs, the lows. You know, like I said, we've been through it all, and this moment was a long time coming, and it was. I couldn't even breathe during that finals.
yeah,
And when he won, I mean, it's wild because it's one that it's like I knew he had it in him. I knew he had it, especially with a kid he's wrestled a number of times and has had a dominant performance every time. But Porter's he's what I call a catch wrestler, where it's like he can catch you at any second. And so I was so scared that whole match, and as soon as I couldn't even commentate really, and then as soon as it was over, I just let out the biggest sigh of relief. And because, like I said, that was 300 days in the making. And unfortunately, Trip and I talked, and I was like, "All right, buddy, hey, you earned a break." And he's like, "Nah, I want to practice next week."
I'd say
And it's like,
he's got more. It's a man on a mission.
yeah,
He understands the winning recipe now.
right, because he's not satisfied with one title, and so um, very proud of Trip. But anyway, like I said, you guys aren't watching for me to talk about Trip now and over again. Let me talk about Porter Vaughn. He's a kid who his time's coming too. He's in ninth grade. He showed a lot of promise. I like his funky style. I mean, him and I'll eventually talk about Parker Bradley in the same fashion. He has a style that I relate to tremendously. They wrestle exactly how I did 9th and 10th grade, where we have kind of a longer bodies and nice hips, and we can scramble. And as he progresses through 10th, 11th, 12th grade. If he starts picking up an offense, maybe doesn't rely on trying to catch, and maybe do traditional stand-ups and works on other things to create a more holistic style, he's going to start picking up titles too.
Yeah, because he's right there.
Yeah.
I mean, he had probably one of the most impressive bracket performances going into that. Like some of the names, like he had to take out Carson Hale, then he had to take out Gilbert from Van Cleve in order to get to those finals. And that,
Oh
and
yeah.
those are two big, tall drinks of water that you got to get down.
Right. That top side of the bracket was tough.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And so like all the credit, to Porter Vaughn, man. Like excellent performance. It's just, man, that Trip Nallen, dude, he was something else, this year. Which Porter picked up a win against him
He
this
did.
year. The only match that Trip had lost this year was to Porter, and so that had to have some confidence in Porter, knowing that he could get it done. But man, Trip was a absolute man on a mission this year, and congratulations, Trip Nallen, man. Hard work paid off.
Which brings us to 150, and you want to talk about highs and lows and storylines and like a movie. I mean, 150 kind of felt like that on both sides of the bracket, on the championship side and on the consolation side.
Yep.
So, hey, Tim, you probably know what I want to talk about. So
Yeah.
you lead us off, man.
All right. Well, I mean, just starting out like this again. We've talked about it. This is another one that was an absolutely loaded bracket. It just truly shows the competitiveness that Mississippi wrestling's starting to come into form with. Uh, you had a heartbreak in this one. Absolute heartbreak with Ian Shepherd. Such an unfortunate, such an unfortunate thing. He picked up two wins in the tournament, a tech fall and then a fall. Unfortunately, ended up getting DQ'd from the tournament over pulling the singlet down. Basically, is what it was twice. And that was just, man, such a heartbreak, especially after being a North Half champion, and such a great kid too. Like it, it's just one of those unfortunate technicalities for him. I would probably have to say, other than the state champion winner Luke Kale, I would have to say the person who had the tournament of their life was Sam Sherman of
Oh,
Albany.
thank you.
I
Yeah.
mean, he had absolutely the tournament. He looked great, man. And unfortunately, he had to bump up against Luke Hale. you know, but I mean, other than that, I mean, he wrestled phenomenally. I mean, he really was. Like, I've seen Sam a good bit throughout this season. He's another one, man. Like, just feeling it, first year team. Now, he's obviously not like a first year wrestler, per se. He's been wrestling, club wise for a while, but first year team, and the team had some spots that they needed filled throughout the season. He was always, the man, like, hey, I'll wrestle this weight this time. I'll wrestle this weight this time, and getting down towards the postseason, he made a conscious decision to step off into the deep end in the 150. He ended up in third place, man, in the state tournament. Very, 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 very great performance by Sam Sharon.
Oh yeah, man. And on so there's a handful of wrestlers, as our listeners probably understand, who I get a little hyped for or who I have personal connections with. And the wonderful thing about being a club is that you can get a lot of kids from a lot of different schools. And Sam's been with me for maybe a year, going on a year and a half ish. And so I've had a lot of opportunity to get to know the kid and his family. And he's a kid who's easy to like. And he and I had a lot of conversations, and he reached out and asked, because he started the season at 165, and we started talking about weights. And honestly, I thought, go as low as you can. And when he approached me about, what about 150? I was like, there's some killers. We got Ian and Joey and Luke, but I think that might be your best competitive weight class to wrestle in, and he proved it. And I've got a front row seat to watching him wrestle. I know he comes to a lot of premier practices here, and he trains with Tripp and Carson and Luke and all of them. And it was really cool to see what happened at that state, because as we've mentioned before, state does one of two things to a wrestler, as I'll probably repeat multiple times. You either crumble under that pressure or you thrive. And God, Sam thrived. And it almost, I feel myself getting emotional now reflecting on that performance, just because as a coach, it's one of those things, and I think all coaches can relate. You see the potential in an athlete, and then to see them realize it in reality it's a beautiful thing, man. And especially because he bumped up against kids he was nervous to wrestle with, and you would have never guessed the way he wrestled.
Right.
And I'm so proud of Sam.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he looked great out there, and there's a couple other ones that they wrestled well. Also, you had Perkins from Picayune.
Oh yeah,
He looked good out there in a loaded bracket. You had Yaman from Tupelo,
yep.
Yaman Aodi. I mean, another one. Um, he's looked great this year. Picked up good wins. Um,
Well, he's just one of those kids. I mean, I think I've talked about this in previous episodes where, I'll just repeat what I've said in previous episodes. I saw him over the summer, and like I said, I was like, I didn't really expect much of him out of this season, but the trajectory of his improvement, like again, shout out to what Coach Mustafa is doing. I know he trains with them at UFM, and clearly he's doing something right with them
Right.
because he leveled up very quickly and he developed a strategy and a game plan and a style that's very conducive for winning. And
Yeah.
he's done a lot of winning in the past 3 weeks. And even though he got that fourth place finish, I imagine he'll go much higher because I don't think he's going to be stopped training anytime soon.
No.
So I expect good things from Yaman. Last, before we get to that finals match, there's two other names I really want to talk about. Anderson of Olive Branch. I was incredibly impressed with his performance. Again, just like all those Olive Branch kids, they just look like they're ready to run through a wall.
Yeah.
And that's what was displayed. Again, as a function of being a first year team, he probably doesn't have a whole lot of experience. And that room probably doesn't have a whole lot of experience. But, God, can he fight?
Yeah.
Can he fight, and can he put himself in positions to win, and can he catch people? And he sure can.
That's he's dangerous, man. Like you can tell, like he's super athletic, but he said like that's a great word is fight. Like he's gonna be rough with you. He's gonna go out there and he's gonna go for it. Now you may catch him, but you're gonna have to catch him in the middle of him going for it.
And then the last person before we talk about Fisher and Hale, I mean, Dougherty of Van Cleve. I mean, buddy, you've taken some lumps, in the past couple of weeks, and from when I saw you at Dual State, and then at State, you ran into some bigger names, and you dropped that tough first round loss, but you just again, I mean, I really put a lot of respect on kids who can face adversity and then claw their ways back. And you lost to Anderson in the first round, and then you ended up facing Anderson in the seventh and eighth and pulling it off.
Right, like getting that lick back.
How poetic is that, man? And so you're a senior, you're graduating. I hope you go join your older brother up over in, I believe, Marion University. I hope to see you up there, man. You're clearly a fighter. You clearly have a good head on you, and so I want to give you props for that as well, man. And then Roman Leoponatok, buddy, first year, first program. Listen, just keep climbing that ladder. I think I think you have some potential as well. But of course, that brings us to
Finals.
Luke Hale and Joey Fisher, who have plenty of experience. They've wrestled each other 5 times this season.
That's right, and it was
it's only fitting that they met.
It absolutely, especially after Fisher ended up getting the lone win of the series at North Half, in which dropped Luke down to where Luke had to wrestle back. He did. He showed great composure at North Half. Ended up wrestling back, getting that third place finish. But that was one of the ones. That was fresh, just a week ago, and so there was big stakes on that one for Luke Hale, and you kind of had to wonder. It's like is he locked in? Does he where is he at? Did that confidence drop a little bit, and or was he coming back for vengeance? And sure enough, he came back for vengeance.
I mean, which I tell you what, I mean, Luke he's a special kid to me, man. I've been training with him for a long time now, since the Tanglefoot days, and we've had a lot of ups, a lot of downs, and I just remember last year's state tournament. We got up, we got into the state tournament undefeated, North Half state champ. All the confidence in the world that he was going to take it all, and then he met the older Dougherty in the semis and got upset, or not necessarily upset, but he got beat, and that obviously made him upset. And I remember he wrestled Pierce in third and fourth. He got headlocked and pinned, and I mean, hey, those are emotional moments. And I remember talking with him afterwards, and I said, hey, we're not going to have this happen again. Not again. All right, we have a lot of work to do, and we're going to get on the top of that podium next year. You just got to put in the work yet. And another thing that is really special about him to me, and I'll just let the viewing audience know, and I'll be vulnerable right now. I mean, last season, I thought my coaching career was over, and I didn't think I was going to be bouncing back. But Luke was one of the few wrestlers that stood by me and said, "I'll follow you anywhere." And God bless, man. I mean, he's a special kid in my heart, and so I mean, this is just like Trip now, and this was a long time coming. And he had some struggles these past 2 weeks, and shout out to Coach Dustin out of North Pontotoc. He and I got to know each other these past 2 weeks because we came together over this issue. You know, Luke, you know, a season wears on you, and success can be a burden.
Yeah.
And I think that was kind of affecting him towards the end. So Coach Dustin and we got together. We started talking. I know he got into Luke's ear, and I got into Luke's ear, and you know, Luke came prepared with
Yep.
his head on straight, and he looked true to form, and he got it. And hey, I got really excited, and you know,
The best finals commentary finish.
I that was a special one for me, and I know it was a special one for the North Pontotoc community because he's such a good kid. He has a whole community behind him, and that was a good one. That really was.
Yeah.
And but with that said, I would be ashamed of myself if I didn't compliment Joey Fisher.
Yep.
That kid's dealt with a lot of adversity. He's had shoulder problems. I know he's got his own critics and his own, you know, all this, that. I mean, he has a lot of noise he has to deal with as well. I know, especially
After last weekend.
yeah. And so, I mean, to have all that noise and to be able to perform the way he performed, I mean, I was, you know, he has a style that I'm not super enthusiastic about, but it's a style that works, and it's a style that has worked. And I remember watching that dual state when they were wrestling Van Cleve. I mean, he majored Dougherty, and since then he looked much better.
Yeah.
At dual state and that north half, he looked very good, and then at state he looked very good. And just Luke Hale came prepared, and he came ready, and you know, it just fell how it fell. But, you know, Joey, you had a fantastic career, and, you know, you had a lot of success on the mat. And I know you're not pursuing college wrestling. I know you want to go to Ole Miss and do all that jazz. But if you change your mind, you could wrestle at any program that you choose. And, you know, if you want to make those connections, I mean, hit us up. I mean, the nice thing about this network is that we're starting to meet college coaches, and, you know, these college coaches in our conversations, you know, we have, they respect our word. So if you do change your mind, let us know. Reach out to us because you can make it to that next level, and you showed a lot of courage and bravery at the state tournament. But hey, it just happened. You lost to one of the best kids in Mississippi, and
Yep.
it is what it is. There's no shame in that.
And congratulations, Luke Hale.
Absolutely.
You know, on capping the season off. You know, hitting that goal that you set forth. With that, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to be a wrap on part one of the boys state individual tournament breakdown. Make sure you tune in for part two. Peace.